Thank you for joining today's webinar. We are having a little bit of technical issue at our end, and one of our panelists is trying to get into the meeting. While we wait, let me just tell you the topic of today's webinar, as you see on the screen, is right above taking payroll, HR trends, and solutions. My name is Martin, and I'm a project manager here at Terra Group. This is HR Fast Company. I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, I want to make a few housekeeping items. All participants will be on mute during the session. If you have a question for our presenter, please type it in the question box in the participant line. If we are unable to get to your question during the session, we will be sure to follow up with you afterwards. Today's presentation is being recorded. A link to the recording will be sent to all registered attendees shortly after the session. And the presenters who will be sharing their expertise today will be Don Bernstein and Leslie George. Don is a senior director of strategy ADP, and Leslie is a senior business consultant with years of experience also at ADP. And I see now that I believe you have a Dan here from KG. So let me just take just about 30 seconds to see if Don has audio. And he can continue our presentation. Just give me 1 moment, please. Unfortunately, Don is still having some audio issues. So let me go ahead and just share a little bit about HR Path while we are waiting. Okay, we have Don and Leslie that will join us to be able to talk us more about how ADP can help you in your SAP HR Path partnership. And the agenda for today's meeting is basically that, how ADP and SAP HR can help move your company forward in line with today's trends, and how market trends are shaping the new world of work, compliance improvement opportunities. Today, we have so many proprietary requirements that often ADP and HR.
Hello?
Hi there, is that Don? Hi, Don.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Welcome to the webinar.
Okay.
Perfect. You came just in time for filling the letter. So if you want to carry on from here.
Actually, the connection is not very good.
Okay. We can hear you very clearly though.
Okay. Okay. Are we kicked off yet?
Yes, the webinar is in progress. What I'll do then is I'll just take a quick minute to just talk about SAP, and then after that you can jump straight into ADP and the actual agenda for today's webinar. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. So just a little bit about SAP for the group here. We are a global company. We are a global leader in human resources with a demonstrated track record in human capital management and cloud-based software. We are partners with some of the largest leading HR solution providers, such as ADP, business factors. As you can see on the slide, we are an SAP Gold level partner. And we have more than 1,200 clients who have trusted us with their implementations and are referencing clients. And we're happy to provide references for anyone who will need them. So, we're very happy to work with different clients, different industries. And we have three business lines. We have an advice, an implement, and run sections of our business. So, we really can tailor the approach to whatever your needs. And of course, we are in more than 20 countries, many happy employees. We stress very heavily on employee satisfaction and different facts. So you will get very senior consultants with us for a while when we work on projects. And of course, we have 21 years of experience in the market, and we are cloud certified. So with that, I will go on to the next slide. And John, you can take over from here. And about laying the groundwork. Please take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for having us on the call. My name is Don Gillespie. I am with ADP, and we are a strategic partner of both SAP and HRPath. So great to be here on the call today. My background is I have 20 plus years in the HCM services and payroll services space, both inside of ADP and outside the organization as well. And I actually live in the Washington, D.C. Area. So, great to be here on the call today as well. My other counterpart who is slated to speak today on the session here is Leslie Warwick. She is a senior business consultant with ADP, specializing in ADP's suite of standalone services. And so for slide 3, from an agenda perspective, really what we're going to be covering today is providing this audience some information around the ADP and SAP partnership, how we work together to help customers be successful on both SAP solutions, especially if you have a in-source or in-house strategy for your payroll processes, and what you can do from a complementary services and best practices perspective to be successful on those platforms. We're also going to double click on some of the market trends that are shaping the world that we're all operating in right now. There's a lot of challenges and opportunities in a variety in a number of areas, from a macroeconomic perspective, from a talent challenges perspective, employee engagement. And so we'll speak to that in terms of how you can optimize and take advantage of some of those opportunities. And then we'll also talk about, compliance. So compliance is a moving target. We know that you all are faced with as your organizations continue to grow, and perhaps you're adding locations across North America in different jurisdictions. You want to make sure that you're able to, do that and operate safely and compliantly as you continue to grow. And then lastly, we'll talk a bit about organizational and workforce impacts and conclusions. And we'll also provide an opportunity for question and answer session at the conclusion of the webinar. And so my apologies, I actually cannot see visuals, so I'm going to call out slides to proceed. So I'm on slide 4 here. So really laying the groundwork on slide 4. As I mentioned, I've been in this industry for 20 plus years. And as I've worked in the industry, I've, really come to love acronyms. And one of the ones that resonates for me that I've heard over the years is ADP is always designing for people. And so I love that, because if you focus and start with how you're going to impact people, your goals, obstacles and challenges that you're facing every single day that are getting in the way from you growing your careers and you being aligned to work that, you can feel passionate about and engaged in, that's really what it's all about, right? And then on slide 5 here, and as we do this, I love the fact that ADP and SAP, we're focused on this together. And as you look at the opportunity we have together as partners, we've been able to help organizations from a broad array of industries and companies of all sizes. And so we're helping you grow, we're helping you, meet your goals and address challenges. And then moving forward to slide 6. So I think it's important to frame up a little bit around ADP and SAP. What is our partnership? And so we have been partners for over 20 years, and we're focused on our joint customers and helping you be prepared to take on those unexpected challenges. And so whether that be an economic downturn or a global pandemic, or opportunities to grow through mergers and acquisitions, or maybe opportunities to journey together as the nature of work continues to evolve, that's really what our partnership is all about. And so we have over 1,000 customers together, and our focus is helping to both meet you where you are as an organization today, while helping you modernize, not just from a technology perspective, but business processes as well. And so we're able to execute together to drive value to customers, in part also because we are clients of one another. And that helps to enrich our point of view as we go to market to bring solutions to SAP customers. And on slide 7, slide 7 really speaks to our experience in the industry. So ADP Compliance Solutions has been in this market for several decades, focused on complementary solutions that integrate with your SAP environment and provide opportunities to drive down risk, compliance risk, tax risk, other types of regulatory risk, and provide you those resources you need to be successful and driving down costs and exposure for your organizations. And ADP is not only building technologies and delivering services to help you be, successful. But we also have resources, extensive resources and expertise. So as the regulatory environment continues to change and hundreds upon hundreds of tax and rate changes occur each and every year, you need a qualified partner to work with you to consume those changes, to understand those changes, and to integrate them into your business process. And that's a core competency for ADP. We have a award-winning cloud-based platform to provide you the visibility and control and reporting capabilities in terms of what's going on with disbursements, what's going on with your tax filings. Again, all as you are operating and running your gross to net payroll inside of SAP. And then I spoke to the fact already that we've been 20 years as dedicated partners and that we have thousands of shared customers together. So one of the things I want to stop and speak to is HRPath and Terra Information Group. So as we go to market together to support customers, we're leveraging the fact that HRPath and Terra Information Group are leaders from an advisory standpoint, from a consulting, perspective in helping organizations like yours assess their needs and then deliver and implement SAP solutions. And so why that's important and why we created the partnership with HRPath and Terra Information Group is that as we do so, payroll and HR and ERP, you want to make sure that as you're implementing those solutions that you're doing so in a holistic manner across areas that fall on ADP side from a core competency perspective and other areas that are on the SAP side. And so we have a partnership structure where we ensure that you have a holistic approach and holistic strategy, and that we're coordinated in everything we do. We're bringing integrations to bear to help you be successful so that you're operating with the latest and greatest integrations to create business processes and work streams that are efficient and effective for your organization. So I'm going to pause there and see if the HRPath team has anything that they would like to add to that.
Yes, I'm going to open them.
Okay. And I don't believe Leslie was able to dial in yet. I think we're having some technical challenges on her side. Leslie, were you able to join the call? Okay. So HRPath team, apparently Leslie was able to join the call, but she's in listen only mode. Is there a way for you to convert or send her the panelist code for her to redial in, please? We're Please bear with us as we navigate some technical difficulties here. We're getting the panelist code over to Leslie so that she can dial in. Our apologies. One moment. I appreciate everyone's patience as we navigate the technical difficulties. It should just be another minute. Leslie, this is a audio check. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect. Oh my goodness. Everyone, thank you. Thank you for your patience as we navigated some of the audio challenges there. And Leslie, welcome to the call.
Oh, thank you for having me, and everyone, our apologies for the delay.
Okay, perfect. So we were on slide 7, and I was just giving a rundown on some of our capabilities as SAP partners, and so we're picking it up at slide 8 here.
Wonderful. So just let me know when you're ready, and I'll take it over at slide 8.
All right, you got it. Go ahead and feel free to take over.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. My name is Leslie Warwick. I'm a senior business consultant with ADP. So we'll start there. And what I wanted to start off with is just a little bit of a story to let you see some of the numbers. That's really kind of the basis as to what we're going to be talking about today. So these sound like some very, very large numbers, and that's because they are. But they are more human than you would actually expect, or than you might expect. So as we go over to the next slide, Don, I'll just go ahead and talk a little bit about, coming out of the pandemic. We have HR and payroll professionals, along with our business leaders, that quite frankly, you guys have impressed us with the resilience and some of the creative thinking when it comes to keeping your businesses going. So this is all types of industries. And now that we're in the aftermath of the pandemic, thank goodness, right? We all have a new set of challenges, or as I like to say, it's an opportunity for innovative thinking. And that, my friend, is managing the employee experience compliantly. So that's a big deal. There were a lot of law changes over the last couple of years. And there's also been a lot of time where employees had an opportunity to kind of reevaluate their priorities and their perception of work. And they were very, very generous with their feedback. So this new world of work is actually going to personalize the employee experience, and we're going to respond to some of the much needed support and employee expectations in real time. But what we're going to do most of all is keep compliance top of mind. So as we look at things like market trends and how it's shaping the new world of work, and how we're talking to compliance improvement opportunities, as well as how ADP can partner with SAP to help some of that organizational impact as we go through the presentation. So going on to slide 10, one of the things I wanted to start off with was employee well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So experiencing stress at work has some very far-reaching downstream effects, but I guess if we think about it, if we think back about some of the stressful events over the past few years, a good portion of them had absolutely nothing to do with work. And if you guys are saying, yeah, no, my stress is all work, I'm gonna challenge you there for a moment and just ask you guys to think back and remember if you were challenged with maybe homeschooling. I know I was. And even if you weren't doing homeschooling, you were definitely running from store to store, probably trying to find toilet paper and other items. And then you remember that period of time of skyrocketing gas prices. So all of those things, seemed so overwhelming at the time. But for me, those considerations quickly started to fade in the middle of all of it. And the reason it started to fade is because I started volunteering at a food bank. And it hit me when I had a conversation with what was considered to be a non-essential worker, right, whatever that is, right, whose job had come to an abrupt end and his benefits hadn't quite kicked in. And I was reminded that life can be very, very difficult, and the levels of stress that our employees carry, our new hires are carrying, employees that perhaps were laid off and couldn't find the right resources right away, it's going to vary from one worker to another, from one person to another. So when we talk about employees wanting a low stress work environment, I think we can all completely agree why. Some of the stats that are up here, so 81% of workers say that they'll be looking for a workplace that supports mental health initiatives. So when you think of items such as harassment, discrimination, heavy workloads, these are all items that impact an employee's well-being at work. If you couple that with life, it's no wonder that the employees are struggling with their overall well-being. So why does that matter? Well, it matters because there's $20 million in lost productivity for every 10,000 workers. So if we quickly just do the math for your own organization, think about that. That's $2,000 per employee. And if you just multiply that by the size of your organization, you'll get what that net result is for your organization if you have employees that are feeling stressed at work. A total of $322 billion worldwide was lost due to turnover costs and low productivity simply because of employee burnout. And we're going to dig a little deeper in there, and we're going to talk about some ways that we could perhaps ease the burden on some of your employees. So as we go over to slide 11, the benefits of employee well-being, if we couple that with an inclusive, diverse, and equitable workspace, it's going to have tremendous benefits that are far-reaching. Organizations will see the increased productivity because employees are taking fewer sick days and they're delivering higher performance. And that all translates to lower burnout and lower turnover. So when you think of a DEI workplace, it breeds creativity because a broader range of skills among employees. So this level of inclusion will allow employees to bring their unique, authentic experiences, to bring their perspectives, their backgrounds. And of course, I think we could all agree that differing perspectives brings broader solutions. So slide 12. This is one of the most talked about trends from a worker perspective, and that is worker flexibility and hybrid working. Now, I can't see the chat, but just kind of like a maybe show of a hands if you have that capability to say, hey, we do have a flexible workspace, you can just put that in the chat, and maybe Don can see that information. But workers will be looking for companies that promote that work-life integration. So it's a little bit different from the balance, because the integration means that the workers have scheduling flexibility. So if you think of it from the perspective of, it's not necessarily where work gets done. So am I home? Am I at work? But it's when work gets done. And a lack of this type of flexibility can result in what's known as quiet quitting. So if anyone has ever kind of heard that term, it's essentially an employee doing the absolute minimum requirements of one's job without any additional time, effort, or enthusiasm. So if you think of that quintessential 9-to-5 employee, that's someone that's quietly quitting, right? So transitions to the workforce, they're already happening. Organizations are seeing the benefits of hybrid working, remote working, scheduling flexibility. There are about 70 companies in the UK right now that have already started a 4-day work week. So this is new. So, but here's the difference. Here's the caveat. There's no loss of pay, and there's no additional hours. It's just a 4-day work week. So they still work their 8 hours a day, but only 4 days a week. And our friends in Maryland, if anyone from Maryland area or has employees in the Maryland area, they actually have a proposal on the table for a 4-day work week. So we'll see what happens if that actually passed. But, it would be the first of the kind in the U.S. And here's an interesting statistic. Deskless workers make up 80% of the global workforce, and over half of them would leave their current jobs to gain more autonomy and flexibility. So that's a tremendous amount. When I did that research, I was surprised that 80% of the global workforce was deskless. I was like, wow, I never fathomed that. But when you think of all of the different industries that make up someone that doesn't necessarily need a desk, it's the majority of the people, right? And when it comes to flexibility, we cannot forget financial flexibility. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into financial flexibility in just a minute. But, that's essentially an option of providing access to an employee's wages in advance of their scheduled workday. That's one way that you can have financial flexibility. I think I heard everyone just silently cringe over there. But again, like I said, I'll explain how that works. I'll dig deeper in there, because I know, you just might want to consider the fact that 52% of employees are distracted by their finances at work, and they spend 3 or more working hours thinking about their personal finances. So when you consider those, it might just be worth considering, especially once you see just how simple and easy it actually can be. And then, of course, the hybrid working, right? So it's not 100% remote, it's not in the office, but we do have employees that, and it will be different for every company, but the model essentially supports a mixture of on-site and off-site work. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, because I would be remiss if I didn't step off topic to just ask, and you may be able to put it in the chat. When you think about hybrid working or remote working, there are a few considerations that you might want to be mindful of. So just out of curiosity, I don't know if you can put anything in the chat or not. What do you think that consideration might be if you're going to start offering employees the ability to work from home? I'll pause for a second, but I'm not sure if you're able to put anything in the chat. Well, I'll go ahead and give you the spoiler. Mm-hmm.
Leslie, I would just chime in, especially, coming out of the global pandemic. One of the things that we saw that was a challenges for some of our customers before they moved on to ADP Smart Compliance is that with this newfound flexibility, organizations, employees, suddenly they didn't have the constraint of having to go into an office, right? And so in some cases they were actually, moving to new locations, new jurisdictions, and actually not reporting back to their own company the fact that they had moved. So it very quickly, created a scenario where, because there was that flexibility, suddenly the complexity and the burden on organizations to kind of stay up with all of this change got heightened very, very quickly. And so that's something that's very much top of mind for organizations now. With all this flexibility comes kind of the burden and challenge of, keeping up with the implications from a, tax process perspective, which I think is perhaps, where you're going with this.
I absolutely am, and great answers. And I'm sure if there was a chat, that's what everyone put in there. There are tax implications to be mindful of, right? Especially if you have employees that have opted to move to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, and those very high jurisdictional states, right? So there's just a lot to consider. And even though I place this under hybrid working, what's very interesting is that 75% of workers globally, so if you have employees that are outside of the United States, this is a global comment, is that they believe that remote work is the new normal. So they're not planning on going back. So this next slide, I always like on slide 13, Don, is I always like to share this in-house process, and you could certainly chime in here as well. But when you think of everything that you're doing as an in-house administrator of payroll, these are just some of the tasks from a tax perspective that we thought we would jot down, right? So agency notices come in, different things come in. There's research, deposits, reconciliation. So it's on, and I put it there because there's, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 57 different independent tasks on top of just everything else that you're doing. So it's definitely exorbitant, especially when you consider the fact that employees keep moving.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think we probably have quite a bit of quite a number of practitioners on the phone actually managing some of these processes today, and not just employment tax as you see here, but other processes, kind of disbursement processes, garnishment processes, things of that nature. I would just say, from my perspective, like full respect, right? Because you guys have so much, burden and responsibility, on you each and every day. And let's face it, at the end of the day, the talent pool for, what you all are specializing in, and the support that you're giving and you're lending to these processes, y'all are somewhat of a dying breed, right? And so I would just say with that, given the economic environment, it's that much more important for your organizations to give you help, to provide you the tools and the resources and the expertise to help you be successful at your jobs. And so that's the number one thing that our customers would come back and say is, yes, there's advantages from a, risk mitigation perspective and cost savings. But one of the biggest thing is scalability and helping, to meet the challenges, to meet the volume, and to really partner with you as partners to help you be successful in your roles. So yes.
Yeah. So if we want to go on just to slide 14, I always like putting this up here because, oftentimes people heard of unbanked, but never necessarily underbanked. But did you know that unbanked employees can spend anywhere from $600 to $1,000 annually? And this is just to access the banking system. So, when you think of low balance fees, just different things that, not no balance fees, but when you think of just what they spend to get money orders and different things so that they can send out payments, that's about what they're spending. So just a quick survey again, is anyone at or close to 100% direct deposit? And I don't know, Don, if you could see anyone in the chat, but the reason I ask is because underbanked associates tend to be workers that feel that they have to have a banking account in order to comply with their company's rules. And they're right, they probably do. But they can also spend anywhere between $400 and $600 annually, and those are on such items as low balance fees and just insufficient funds and just other fees that kind of plague them because they never quite seem to be able to make it, with the higher interest rates coming on, the minimum payments, the due dates, and everything else just seems to be all encompassing. So just in order to get that done, they keep the account, but it's about a $20 a month fee because of the low balance. They go under $1,000 or whatever it is that their bank requires. And then there are also predatory loans, which I like to call them because they're payday loans. To me, that's predatory. Pawn shops, alternative lending. These organizations can legally charge 30% or higher for just a pay period loan. Now, many states do set that maximum amount for a payday loan, but that is, 30%. So it's, for $30 for every $100 borrowed. That's exorbitant. So it's just a lot. So just think about that, because when we go to this next slide 15, and then, Don, you could certainly chime in on this as well. What ADP has done is we've provided a virtual banking option for employees that are either unbanked or underbanked. And in the scenario, we're not charging any fees for low balances or anything like that. So it's 50 state compliant. We make it easy for them to receive direct deposit directly to the card. It's utilized nationwide, broad access to fees, and to cash. And then on the next slide, you'll see that unlike many other cards, we don't have fees for ATM. Our network is, in network is 80,000 ATMs. So over the counter, 99 Visa member banks that participate. They can walk into any Visa member bank and get cash from a teller with no additional fees. They can use the app to make payments online, even if it's not, a smaller merchant. Let's say, for example, I lived in a two-family house, and they're not set up to receive an automated payment. At no additional charge, ADP will cut a check and mail it to that landlord, for example. So even though you can use this network of over 80,000, it's a Visa branded card. So you can make payments at point of sale. You can get cash back at point of sale. You can do bill pay online. So it's an all-inclusive card and offering.
Yeah, Leslie, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in this day and age, it's vehicles like this. I almost call it kind of the democratization of pay. When you look at different generations in and entering the workforce, and how those individuals want to receive their compensation, more and more, especially with the younger generation, they very much want options to get a portion of their payment on Apple Pay, or Google Pay, or any number of alternate payment vehicles, if you will. And so we're providing the tools that provide that level of flexibility that is going to be attractive for those employee groups. And by the way, if that's something that can be turned into a recruiting tool, right, to sweeten the pot in terms of your compensation package, that's something that differentiates you perhaps from your competitors, in that you are very modern in your compensation approach and what you offer out to employees getting onboarded.
Yep, that's an excellent point, and I forgot to mention that card does work with Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, as well as Google Pay. So, yeah, good call out. So, slide 17. So, when looking at trends impacting how employees are paid and incentivized, has anyone, and again, I keep these interactive because I think I'm actually having the ability to do that, but has anyone ever considered offering earned wage access? I mentioned it a little bit early, but essentially they're paying a portion of the wages in advance of payday and utilizing that as a retention tool. I'm going to dig a little deeper because there are no-cost offerings that are available, and the interesting thing is that these payments are not subject to wage and hour laws because they're funded by a third party. So there's no constructive receipt, because I know that's what everyone is jotting down in the chat right now that I can't see. There's no constructive receipt concerns because it's facilitated by ADP and Daily Pay and not your payroll team. So the line that you're envisioning that's coming around the corner out of your office with employees coming in saying, hey, can you forward, advance me $50? Can you advance me $100? That just seems to be endless. It's not the reality, right? So that's just kind of when I talk to payroll professionals and HR teams, that's kind of the vision of what they are thinking. But the payroll teams are completely removed from this particular process. It's an opportunity to help employees manage their money without being forced to utilize payday loans and other predatory offerings. So the win-win is that 72% of employers who offer earned wage access experience an increase in employee tenure, and 30% of employers see an increase in employee productivity. And that comes from that, remember that 3 hours that I talked about earlier, the 3 hours a day that employees are spending worrying about their finances? It's that, and that's the savings. And then the next slide, and Don, you can certainly chime in as well, is really just some of the results that we've seen in the campaigns that we've run for employers that utilize earned wage access, right? So we can see, the adoption rates, how frequently they're using them, the reduction in turnover, the average amount that's transferred for advanced wages. So they're not asking for thousands of dollars. And keep in mind, they've earned this money. So if it's, Thursday afternoon, I'm on a biweekly pay and I want my wages for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I could do that because maybe it's just that small amount that's going to allow me to pay my minimum balance on my credit card so that I don't have to worry about a late fee. Because again, the minimum balances are going up because the interest rates have gone up. So this is just one way of helping your employees' financial wellness.
I would just chime in, for each of these percentages here, I think about how we, for the practitioners on the phone, I think there's always a notion of, hey, as we look to modernize and drive innovation into our business processes, who's going to pay for all that, right? From a return on investment perspective. And so with, just imagine a 20+% increase in productivity. There's real dollars associated with this, and reduction in turnover. Turnover and labor costs is one of the number one expenses of an organization. So if you can use modernizing your compensation, practices to drive these types of improvements into your business process, there's real hard dollars here that can, positively impact the organization.
Yeah, great point. So on the next slide, slide 19, I also wanted to give you just a little bit of a glimpse into some of the emerging trends that I found while doing the research. So year over year, ESG is playing a larger role in determining business success. You're like, well, how in the world could that be? Well, if you guess what the biggest reason for this growing shift, it's the younger generation. So millennials and Gen Zers, they have an increasing impact on consumer and employment standards. And more so than any other generation before them. And this group is doing their research, and they're looking to hold what they consider unethical businesses accountable. And they're making their voices known through their power of social media. And that's part of the reason that no other generation was able to do it, because we just didn't have the level of social media that this group has. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me that 92% of S&P 500 and 70% of the Russell 1000 companies have already published sustainability reports because they want to stay off the radar of this group. So the new wave of employees, they're encouraging businesses to take a progressive role on how they treat not only their employees, but the world around them. It's very important to them. And if you're looking for a retention tool, just know that 83% of millennials said that they would be more loyal to a company that helps them contribute to social and environmental issues.
Thank you for that, Leslie. I did want to call out, just in the interest of time, it looks like we have about 6 or 7 minutes left until we're at the conclusion of our time. So, I think we can make sure that this entire audience gets access to the full deck of content. But in the interest of time, if there's anything that you feel like we should skip ahead, I think we should, be respectful of that, because I do want to leave a couple minutes for Q&A, if that makes sense.
Sure. Why don't we skip over to slide 25?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is these numbers on the board. And I know I can't keep it interactive, but typically I always like to ask, well, what do you think these numbers represent? But I'll tell you, these numbers represent the number of open positions for payroll professionals as of January of 2022. So I always like to just, if you look at those wage garnishments, ACA, unemployment claims, many, many things, workers' comp that have been put on this screen. These are all things that are very much payroll centric. So you guys are in huge demand. I did want to touch on 26, and then we'll jump right on over to slide 30 after this one, because wage garnishments are a classic example, where the laws vary from one state to the other. And it's also an emotionally challenging issue for employees whose wages are being garnished. So, wage garnishments essentially impact 1 in 14 U.S. workers, and an estimated 12% of workers with a garnishment has more than one type. So automating this process saves employees and employers alike. For the employer perspective, this is an automated solution when you partner ADP with SAP, because what we do, ADP, is we receive these orders when they're coming from the Office of Child Support. We receive them automatically. We determine the ask from the agency. If you utilize a registered agent, we'll receive it right from your registered agent, or we provide tools that you can upload them directly to what we call our Smart Compliance Portal for visibility. But once we do receive them, we image them, we store them, we index them, we determine the ask, and we seamlessly place that data into your SAP system of record. We even provide tools, if you can imagine, for your employees to make it easier, because, let's just say an employee who normally works a 40-hour work week is only working 20. We provided them with an app that shows their original order as well as any correspondence to the courts. So if they don't work that full 40-hour work week, we proactively reach out and let the agencies know that, hey, we recognized that a payment was due, not enough funds to pay it. So let's just jump over to slide 30, because I did want to recognize, when I started the segment and I realized it was late, but we recognized that payroll and HR, that you guys have been on the front line of this entire journey, and that leading with the skills that you have are fabulous, but what's happening now goes far beyond people management, and that comes at a cost. And we're seeing the stresses that are associated with everything in your job. In fact, 73% of payroll professionals said they don't have the tools or the resources to do their job well. So we just wanted to know that we hear you. We have some tools that we'd like to talk to you about. And if you go over to the slide 32, Don, I just wanted to give a glimpse as to what those numbers do talk about, within the story. And then I'll hand it back over to you on slide 33 for Q&A.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. Excellent job, excellent conversations, right? I'm hoping that the folks in the audience, heard a lot of value, and as they are going on their own journey to, look at solutions and capabilities to help them be successful on SAP platforms, please engage your team at HRPath if you have interest in learning more about these capabilities. And as you see on slide 32, we have a lot to bring to bear to help you be successful. And so, the fantastic things about our capabilities is it's not an all or none sort of model. We'll work with you from a advisory perspective to assess, what set of solutions can we curate to lighten your load, to lighten your burden, and to help you not burn out while having a positive impact on, driving out that cost, driving out that risk, and helping you, get aligned, to the work that's most engaging for you. Slide 33 simply speaks to, how we're working together with, SAP payroll, with HRPath. So everything on the left-hand side of the screen represents really true gross to net types of, technology and business processes that are happening inside of SAP. And then our partnership is picking up where that gross to net leaves off with those last mile, business processes that still need to get done, and, helping positioning this team for success. So I want to pause there. If you go to slide 36, I did want to provide an opportunity for Q&A. If there's any questions that the audience has or that the HRPath team wants to relay to us.
Sure. Thank you, Don and Leslie. Let me ask you one question, which I'm sure is on the minds of many people. What are the advantages of leveraging SAP, HRPath, and ADP together to support us?
That's a really good question. I'll give my answer, and then I'll also defer to Leslie. But at a very high level, organizations we work with, they've built their strategy around SAP technology from a payroll perspective. But what they're worried about is the mitigating the risk. And Leslie spoke to it. Leslie spoke to, just kind of the heightened costs associated with operating in-house, the rapidly changing regulatory landscape, even things happening, from an unexpected challenges perspective. And so that's a lot for folks to, stay on top of. And so that risk would be number one. The cost would be another area as well. And certainly the risk and the cost are tied together. When you talk about these business processes and the risk associated with it, there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of, fees, fines, penalties, implications, if you were to get things wrong. Right. And so, that's a level of costs that ADP can help you drive out of your process, as well as, costs associated with inefficiency, labor costs, things of that, areas like that. And then, simply, I think the third one and very, very key is getting your people aligned to work that's engaging, right? And so less focus on, tactical work that is not adding value to the bottom line, but really leveraging ADP's expertise and HR Path's expertise to build business processes that are very scalable and repeatable, and that help realign talented people resources to work that is driving most value to the organization. Leslie, would you have anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that was very, very well said. And I always like to think of it from the compliance side of things. Really, no one gets rewarded for mailing out a paycheck on time or making sure that direct deposit hits. So I always like to think of ADP as taking letting you get back to your core work, and we'll do the chore work. And that's really kind of the
I love that.
All of that back end compliance, mitigating that risk. You stay with the core, we'll do the chore.
Love that. Great question.
Thank you so much.
Any others?
Just one more. So the client says we are a medium-sized organization but growing rapidly. Is there a minimum size for tax payments and garnishment services?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're certainly looking at models to support very small organizations, but in general, if your organization has a couple hundred employees, 200, 250 employees, that's really the entry point for these compliance solutions. That said, if you're not quite there yet, please continue to work with your HR Path team, and they can help get you in touch with ADP as you can continue to grow, because we definitely want to have that conversation with you and help you be effective in getting ahead, because growth can happen very, very rapidly. All it takes is winning another customer or a merger acquisition. So we want to be your partners as you continue to grow and account for complexities associated with that growth.
Sounds good. Thank you. And those are all the questions I have.
Okay, perfect. Well, HR Path team, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was great to speak to everyone today. So appreciate the opportunity, and let's keep the conversation going.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone,
all
to
right.
all the attendees attending this webinar.
Thank you so much.
Sending the recording to all the attendees. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Leslie. Goodbye.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.